Vamos a empezar ya a disfrutar de las ponencias, de las distintas intervenciones, así que voy a dar paso a Luis Connolly, responsable de formación de Macmillan, que nos introducirá en la primera ponencia. Luis.
Good morning, everybody. Hello. I hope you're all well. Thank you, Adolfo. Before I present Fiona, I would like to just explain very briefly the virtual sessions and courses program that we have to offer at Macmillan for the BEDA program this year. So I'm going to just share my presentation with you now. Okay. And I'll put it in. Okay, so as I said, we are offering this year for the BEDA program virtual sessions. We started this Tuesday, the 27th of October, with a session aimed at primary, and we will continue until March. Next week, we have a session on Wednesday given by Matthew Johnson, which is on assessment at the heart of learning in the secondary English classroom. And we have sessions aimed at pre-primary, primary, secondary. So hopefully there's something there for everybody. In terms of virtual courses, we also have courses which are of 2 or 3 sessions starting in November and continuing until March, again aimed at pre-primary, primary and secondary. And if you would like to sign up for these sessions or courses, you can do so at this web address. You can ask for more information from Vicente Dura, and I think that we'll put in the chat box as well the link to this registration page as well. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I would like to introduce our first speaker, Fiona Dunbar. Fiona has many years experience, more than 25 years experience as a teacher of English, as a teacher trainer and manager. She is currently the director of Eli Language School in Malaga, and she's also a team leader for the Cambridge Young Learner exams in Malaga. And she's particularly interested in motivation, in personalization, in learner training and their impact on learning in the classroom. And today's session, which is called Building Futures One Brick at a Time, will focus exactly on that, motivating us as teachers and students for a brighter future. So welcome, Fiona.
Thank you, Louise. Thank you to everybody and welcome to this session. I'm delighted to be invited to come and share some ideas with you all. So we're going to be talking today, as Louise said, about building futures. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen with you now. Okay, now obviously we're in very difficult times. This, as one of the colleagues mentioned already, these are difficult times. We have to get through them. But this session is basically talking about looking ahead, future, and what we can do to keep ourselves motivated. Okay. Now from here, it looks like we've got a few difficult weeks ahead, but the only way is up. So we've got to bear in mind the future is ahead, the future will be bright, and we're all here working together on the education, which is the absolutely most important thing that we can do for ourselves and for our students looking ahead. So we're looking today, as Louise mentioned, at some ideas and some different activities to help us as teachers, to help our students, to help our directors, to help everybody keep together, keep going, and feel motivated to keep working ahead, working towards this future. Okay, I know that we have lots of participants here from all different ranges. We've got some infants teachers, some primary teachers, secondary, directors, I include myself in all of those things with my role here, and so hopefully there will be something for everybody in our session today. A few things before we started. First of all, very important, make sure you're sitting somewhere comfortable. If it's at your office or at home or in the classroom, make sure you're comfortable. We want to try to keep all the microphones switched off at the moment, because there will be an opportunity to interact through the chat. We'll stop a few times for questions and comments through the chat box, which everybody can access. And I would suggest, if possible, that you have a pencil and paper, because you might want to jot a few things down, take a few notes as we go through some of the things. Okay, so let's get started. First things first, how are we feeling today? Now, of course, whenever my students come to school, or whenever I come and I meet the other teachers, we all say, hi, how are you? And the answer tends to often be the same. You know, in the staff room, everyone says, I'm fine, I'm fine. You ask the students, and particularly the young students, are always like, I'm happy. But let's just stop for a moment and think, how are you actually feeling right now? Okay, so just think about it. You might want on your piece of paper to draw the picture of how you're feeling. And so have a think about how you feel right now. Somebody's got the microphone on.
Teníamos que
Let me see if I can
con Otero Lastres, con
organize that.
esta chica que no lo lleva ahora, de los abogados,
Hello.
y que nos hizo el informe, que yo creo que es lo que hay que hacer.
Okay, I don't know how to control the other person's microphone, sorry.
Fiona, shall I just stop you for a minute?
Yes.
El anfitrión, si está ahí, o el localizador, puede, puede silenciar los micros.
Okay.
¿Vale?
En participantes, ¿ya?
No, pero me dirijo a la persona que ha creado el evento.
Okay.
¿Vale? Okay.
Okay. Yeah? Super. Okay, so let's carry on. I know these things happen. This is the world we're in. This is the online classroom. Like any other classroom, it has its interruptions. That's fine. So I want you to all sit comfortably for a moment. We've got 1 minute of a short video to do. And so all we need to do is to sit and listen to the video and follow the instructions. Okay? Everybody ready? Okay, I'm just going to stop sharing that a sec. So I'm going to share my screen with you again now with the video.
Comfortably. Just beginning with a nice big deep breath. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth.
Okay, let's try again.
So sitting comfortably. Just beginning with a nice big deep breath. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. So eyes open, a soft focus. As you breathe out, you can allow the breath to return to its natural rhythm. But just keep the eyes open for a moment. Just focusing in on one particular object within your field of vision. Not staring at it too intently, still aware of the space around you. You're just gently focusing on that one object. And then just slowly zooming back out again as you blink a few times with the eyes.
Okay, everybody nice and quiet now. Okay, so now I want you to think about something for a moment. I want you to think about yesterday. Okay, yesterday was Thursday, and think for a moment, what was the best 15 minutes of your day? Okay, you might want to close your eyes or keep your eyes open. That's up to you. Think about the best 15 minutes of your day. If you want to note a few things down so that you can remember after and reflect back, then that's a good idea. But what were the best 15 minutes? Who were you with?
Ya he visto tu correíto. A ver qué me dice.
What time of day was it? What could you smell? What sounds could you hear? What voices could you hear? And think, can you put your finger on something particular that made that time of day special? Was there something unique happening? What would have made it better? What could have made it even better, those 15 minutes? Okay, so just think about that for a second, and now have a look here at the screen. Now this is a wheel of emotions. You might have seen it before, and it's very busy. And I know that on your screen maybe you can't see all of the words that are there, depending on what kind of device you're on. But have a look and just think, what colour are you feeling now? What colour are you feeling? Okay, now these wheels of emotion, as we mentioned, there's going to be a lot of training going on with social emotional skills, which are really important, more important than ever at the moment. And if you haven't worked with these before, then I suggest you have a look. There's lots of different ones. There are ones for young kids, which are much more simple, obviously, with pictures. This one I use with very high level students, because it helps them obviously not only to tune in to their own emotions, but it helps them with some really advanced vocabulary there, rather than just saying they're happy or sad, but thinking about really why you feel happy. How do you really feel? So think then what colour you feel. In a moment we're going to ask you in the chat to tell us what colour you're feeling. Think about that. And I'm just going to tell you before we go to the chat, you can put in the chat now what colour you're feeling. We talked about the best 15 minutes of yesterday, and that's something often with my students. My students come to me in the academy, usually obviously in the afternoon and evening. I know that that's different than the school day. So usually we talk about what's been the best 15 minutes of your day so far. If you want, there's lots of different options. You could talk about the most productive 15 minutes, happiest, the most relaxing, funniest. Got the most productive twice there. It's very productive. It's repeating. But I think it's really good to focus sometimes on the good things that have happened. And of course, you know, at the moment, a lot of things are happening which are difficult, which are stressful. But I think if we look hard enough, if we really look, we can usually find 15 minutes that have been positive, happy, or relaxing, or funny, either today or yesterday. And I think if we can look back on that and hang on to those feelings, it helps us feel much better looking ahead. So can we just put in the chat then, what colour are you feeling from our colour wheel? Louise, do you want to help me here? How are you feeling? What colour are you feeling?
Can you show us the wheel again?
Of course, yeah, I can.
Exact, yeah.
Yeah, let me just go back to it. It's not letting me go back. Here we are. There we go.
Okay. Well, I'm feeling happy, yellow.
Yeah.
At the moment, yeah. Well, because it's great to see people. The main reason is because it's great to see people. I'm here on my own in my flat, and well, obviously, you know, I'm in Barcelona, and there's from Friday until, well, 6 a.m. this morning and until 6 a.m. on Monday, we can't go anywhere. So it's quite nice to see faces and look out the window. And well, talking about yesterday, my favorite time was lunchtime, because I was sitting on my terrace, the sun was shining, and my cat was on my lap, and I was eating my lunch, and but the worst thing afterwards was having to go back to work. So
I know. So what have we got in the chat then? What colour are people feeling?
What colour? A range of colours. We've got yellow, we've got blue, we've got green. Somebody's saying they've got a lot of work to do. Yes, so we've got a range. I feel yellow as well, Vicky.
Yeah.
Purple. I don't remember. Yeah, purple. Which one was that?
Surprised.
Surprised. Okay, that's interesting.
Or confused, could be. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a range, which is
excellent.
normal.
Good. Okay. So thanks everyone for that. I mean, I think the point here is, the important point is not to always feel happy. It's not to always sort of say, yeah, everything's fine, everything, you know, sometimes things are not fine, and that's okay. And I think the important thing is just to tune in and to help our students to tune in to how they're feeling. Because if you can tune into your feelings, it makes it much easier to then move on from there, rather than just kind of assuming that everybody's happy all the time. I know when I was teaching online during the lockdown, I had a group of 3-year-olds, and I had one kid, Beda, who one day was particularly, I could see on the camera, she was screaming and crying, because I think because her parents were trying to stop her playing to join my class. And eventually she joined the class, and I said, "Hello, Beda, how are you?" She said, "I'm happy." And she clearly wasn't happy. And you think, yeah, this is a time that we need to think about how we really feel. Okay, so let's move on from there then. And as I said, we're talking about motivation. So think for a moment. Usually we've got 3 things here. We've got the action, the activity that helps us to reach a goal, and the motivation. So what would you say normally comes first? Have a think about that for a second. Now we've got the action, the goal, the motivation. What comes first? What order would you put these 3 things in? Now here, this is, I think, what most people would respond. Most people would say you need the motivation to then do the action, to then reach the goal, and we're finished. And that's often the view that we have, that we need to get motivated before we do things, you know. But that's not actually always the case. It can also be a circular situation where if you have the motivation, it moves you towards action, which helps you towards the goal, which helps you to keep motivated. And actually, often these things are much more integrated than we might first think. And they all affect one another. They all follow on from one another. If we think about starting an activity, often we need a lot of motivation to get started. We need a push to get started on something. And once we start doing it, once we're involved in it, it actually becomes easier. Often the friction, difficulties are at the beginning. And once we've started something, we keep going, we keep doing it. You know, if we think about in our personal lives, even things like healthy eating, or maybe stopping a bad habit, or changing habits, often the motivation at the beginning is the tricky bit. And once you start doing it, you feel that motivation anyway. It's a little bit like Newton's laws of movements, that once we start, the momentum keeps things going anyway. Now, a few things that we might need to do to get started in our normal day. We're talking about ourselves here. We've got lots of advice of how to keep positive and keep motivated in these difficult moments that we're in. One of the most important things is to have a good morning routine to get started in a good way. So when we start the day, lots of advice says, don't start the day by the alarm clock goes off, quickly look at your phone, think about all the things you have to do, feel stressed before you get out of bed. If possible, and I know life's difficult, I know life stuff, but if possible, try to wake up 5 or 10 minutes earlier than you need to. If you can do some, everybody's different, but if you can do something nice for the first 5 or 10 minutes, a short meditation. There's lots of apps which you can do in English or in Spanish, in all different languages, where you can have like a few minutes of meditation at the beginning of the day, or read a book that you enjoy, or just think about, maybe even think about those 15 minutes of the day before that you enjoyed, so that you can start on a more positive roll, you know? The alarm's there, the phone's there, the diary's there, things will happen anyway, but if you can start in a positive way, then that really makes the day work much better. Another thing that people often say, which I must admit I need to get started on, is having a more regular exercise routine. That if you can integrate exercise into your day, that's going to help, whether it's a 10-minute walk around the block. As Louise said, a lot of us at the moment are very limited in how much we can move around, but thinking about integrating that into your day is going to make things easier. And then, of course, the end of the day, a good bedtime routine. Switch off the phone, don't be looking at the phone, don't be looking at the screen, and get to bed early. So that's my advice. It's all groundbreaking advice that nobody's ever thought of before. But then I think we're going to think now about how these things can be reflected in our classrooms, you know. We've talked about starting the day well, moving in the day, having some movement, and ending the day calmly and positively. Now, obviously in the classroom, one of the things we need to do is to try to be creative. That's going to help us to recreate these feelings in our classrooms. It's well known that creativity is a really important factor for learning languages, but it's also really important for reducing stress and for being engaged and motivated in what you're doing. Some of the things we're looking at here are going to be looking at how we can tune in to people's creativity. Okay, so if you've got your pencil and paper ready, then I'm going to show you this screen, and I want you to have a quick look and think, how many Halloween things can you see here? How many things can you see that are connected to Halloween? It's obviously about to arrive. Tomorrow's Halloween, and it's going to be a strange Halloween. No tricking or treating, not very much Halloween activity, but how many things can you see there connected to Halloween? What else can you see? Is there anything there which is repeated? What do you think is the common theme to our pictures? Is there anything that's surprising that doesn't fit with the other pictures? Okay, so
people are putting ideas in the chat. Pumpkin,
okay.
formadora. Ice cream doesn't fit, Carmen says.
Well, do you know, I looked at that too, and I thought the same, but I think it might be a tree.
Ah, Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Might be, or maybe it doesn't fit because it's ice cream. What else have we got in the chat, Louise?
Okay, just checking. Oh, the person, Cameron put ha after it. Okay. Yeah. David Bradshaw has put ice cream fits though. Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. It's cold in that sense. It's cold.
Yes.
It fits with the winter. I mean, I
Could
think
be a
for me,
zombie head on a stick. There you go.
it could be for Halloween, exactly. Or I tell you, it could be a toffee apple.
True. And Irene says, I think that's not ice cream, but caramel apple related to apple picking. Yum, yum, yum.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, good. So this is just a little picture that I found, obviously, when I was preparing the session for this morning. And I think it's nice because it focuses you on a few different things. There's lots of questions we can ask here. You know, if we're dealing with young children, then of course it's going to be relatively basic, but we could deal with colours and numbers, some of the typical Halloween vocabulary of pumpkin or ghost. And then if you're dealing with older learners, then of course we can talk in more detail about what's happening. So for primary, they could then talk about the winter, how they feel, the connections with the winter or the autumn. And then maybe even for high level secondary, and as we've just done now, you can speculate, you can predict, what do you think, why do you think the ice cream is there? You know, what's the fence? Why is the fence there? What do you think is the connection? And I think those things, it's just an idea, it's one of many different things you could do, but it's maybe a creative way to start the lesson. It's something that can focus people's ideas on something, because one thing we really need to remember when we're starting our lesson is, and in this sense, I think it is different for those of you who are in a school that maybe the lesson's part of the school day, but if you're at the beginning of the day, or for example in my situation where the students come to my class here, I've no idea really how they're feeling or what's happened to them before they've arrived. And I think to try and change that chip and get them focused into something, we need a creative way to start the lesson, so that people can forget what they were thinking about before, whether that's at home or doing something else or in a different lesson. Then they've got to stop thinking about that and get focused on something new. So something creative and that attracts their attention is gonna help with that. Now, I want you to think for a moment. Again, you might need a paper here, paper and pencil, and it's a memory test. So first of all, I want you to remember what you had for breakfast today. If you've had breakfast, maybe you haven't had it yet, but if you've had breakfast, what did you have? Just note that down on your paper. And then what did you have for lunch yesterday? Next question. And what did you have for dinner on Monday? Note that down. And what did you have for breakfast last Wednesday? Okay, now it's not a competition to see who has the healthiest diet, and it's not a competition to see who has the best memory. So, but I do want you to think for a second, now that you've thought about those questions and you've written down your answers, I want you just to think for a second, are you focused on that? Did you focus on trying to remember, or were you distracted thinking about other things? No? Think about that for a second. We have got the chat again there if you want to comment about how you feel there. But I think these things, it's such an easy thing to do. It's such an easy activity. There's no preparation. But when your students come in, then asking them to think about something where they need to remember, they need to think a little bit and they need to remember, then I think it's really good way, again, to change that chip. You know, it stops you thinking about other things, makes you think about it. It's not important what you had for lunch. It's not important what you had for dinner last Tuesday. It doesn't matter, but it's tuned your brain into that, and it's disconnected you from maybe from any worries or stresses that you were thinking about before you arrived or before you started this. So let us know if you felt that helped, and it felt that it helped you to focus. Now, we've got here this
Perdona
kid.
que voy a interrumpir otra vez. La persona que está hablando, si puede silenciar el micro, porfa. Gracias.
Thanks, Louise. Thank you. Okay, so here, this is a little picture of somebody who's feeling surprised. And the activities that we're talking about so far, everything that we've done so far has been about getting started. I mentioned when we were talking about ourselves and our day, the importance of a routine, the importance of having a really strong routine where we start the day well, a routine that includes exercise, and a routine for bedtime for the evening, which maybe will be easier now that we've got our 11 o'clock curfew. But I think we mustn't forget the importance of surprise. You need to find the balance between the routine and surprise. Because if something's too routine in the classroom, then it's going to become boring and it doesn't engage. If I ask you every lesson, what did you have for breakfast? What did you have for lunch yesterday? Then the first day, you'll focus, you'll think about it. The second day, maybe. The third day, it's totally automated. You're just doing it, and there's no connection there. So we've got to remember to find that balance between the routine and the surprise. And one thing that I've been doing a lot in my classes, I've been very aware that we're doing classes here in the school face-to-face. We have been since September. We went online at the end of last year, but now we're face-to-face at the moment. We'll see how long that lasts. But one thing I'm really aware of is how much, usually in our classes, the students move around a lot. And I think, you know, at school, it's the same. They're limited in how much movement they have compared to usual. And so, you know, the students, they're there, they're sitting in the same place, they're not moving. And the movement's so important to keep the blood flowing and to keep the brain working and to keep the kids and the adults, to keep all of us engaged and moving. So I've been trying hard to think of different ways to include a bit of movement in my classes without people having to move out of their chair or having to move around the classroom. So one thing, we've been doing a lot of clapping in my classes. So for example, with my teenagers the other day, we did an activity which was true or false, and they had to decide if it was true or false, for example. And so where normally for that activity, we would just check the answers. Is it true? Is it false? Getting a bit of minimal movement, and it really changed their engagement. You could feel the energy in the room lifting. You know, these are teenagers. They're here late in the evening. They're tired, but it helped. And so I've been trying to think of lots of different ways that we can include that with the primary kids. The other day we were doing present simple and present continuous, and I gave them some examples. They stood up, they didn't move, so they were still distanced from each other, but they stood up and they had to hop if it was present simple. They had to turn around if it was present continuous, for example. The other things, maybe, for example, if you're doing an activity where the answers are A, B, C, then having A, B, C, or even getting them to do the actions of A. We did the other day A, B, C, and D. It was very complicated. It was confusing, the A, B, C, D physical thing, but it helped them to feel moving, to feel that they were, get the blood flowing to the brain and feel that they were involved in doing something motivating. Whereas actually, you know, we were doing an activity from the book where it was A, B, C, or D. It was a reading task. It was nothing revolutionary. The task in itself was a normal, typical classroom task, but we were finding ways that we could move and we could make it a little bit more creative and a little bit more surprising. So my question now for the chat and for Louise is, have you been doing anything in your classes? Can you think of any ways that you can introduce new surprises, or that maybe you can change those routines to make it a little bit more motivating for your students? See what we've got.
So we'll just give people just a minute to write in their answers.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of what you said about standing up and the response to the answer. So not just saying the answer, but using a symbol or a gesture to indicate the response.
Yeah.
And I think it really helps to focus as well.
It does, and I think just when we did this,
yeah,
you know, that suddenly those students who normally were like true, false, true, false, true, false, you know, and suddenly they were like, oh, right, oh, what was it? I can't remember what, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So they had to really think about
the energy.
Response. Yeah.
It's so simple. No preparation. No, you don't need anything else, you know?
Exactly. We'll just see if anybody else, if you want to open your mic, if somebody has an idea and they want to share it through the mic, that's a possibility as well, isn't it, Fiona?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Somebody's saying, Carlos, ask them to stand up and bring objects from their bedrooms, from home, to the lesson to show the rest of the students. So that personal connection.
That personal connection's amazing. And that's something, in fact, that then they can also do if you do end up doing online teaching, then that's a great way to feel a bit of connection there, you know, get all the kids to show you their pet or their toy. You know, when we were doing our online teaching at the end of last year, we had rabbits and hamsters, and my 2 cats were regulars in the classroom, you know, often walking across the screen. But you know, why not? It gives a connection, and now the students are like, oh, how's your cat? You know, we miss your cat. And I think all those personalized things. I see that somebody's mentioned also the game Picturica, talking about the Halloween picture. And it's true, that's a great game. I used to play that with friends of mine and their kids, where you have a picture and you have to be the first person to find something. And so again, we're limited in what we can touch at the moment, but maybe even with, if you've got a grid, if you've got an interactive board in the classroom or a projector, you could have that picture on the board with a grid with numbers, and you can say, okay, where's the ghost? And the first person to find the ghost and say, oh, it's in number 9, it's in number 7, so that they don't have to physically touch it. They can tell you where the pictures are. That would be good. Yeah, it's great for vocabulary for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, super. So we've been talking so far about, let me find my screen again. Okay, we've been talking mainly about starting the lesson and starting the day. And so that's great, that's really important, but the game's not over yet. We've got to keep going, we've got to continue. And something that I've been really interested in for the last year or two is a concept which a lot of you might have heard of, which is called flow. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the name. I have attempted it before, but I've never managed to do it. So I've put it here on the screen. You can see the name of the guy, his concept it is. And I'm just going to show you again a short video for those of you who maybe don't know so much the concept. We're going to watch a short video about flow. So let me get this here. Okay. Now. Nope. Nope.
People are so involved in an activity that nothing
Okay, can you hear that okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Super.
else seems to matter. He goes on to say that concentration is so intense that there is no attention left over to think about anything irrelevant or to worry about problems. Self-consciousness disappears and the sense of time becomes distorted. And you've probably experienced this before, and it's absolutely one of the best feelings in the world. If you're working on your business, you might be so focused on what you're doing that 12 hours might pass and you have no idea. All of a sudden you look up and you realize you haven't had any food, you haven't thought about anything else. The only thing that you could focus on was your business. And the same thing applies to so many other activities, whether you're a rock climber focused on climbing your new record or a master pianist composing your new masterpiece. It's an amazing feeling. You're so immersed into what you love doing, into what you're really good at, that your brain simply can't focus on other things. You're not worrying about stupid things. You're not regretting what you did yesterday or stressing about what you'll do tomorrow. It's absolutely one of the best feelings in the world. So if we look at the flow diagram, here's how you put yourself in the state of flow. You don't want what you're doing to be too challenging, otherwise you'll have anxiety. You don't want what you're doing to be too easy for your skills either, otherwise you'll be bored. But it's when you balance these two that you end up in the flow channel. You're striving towards the upper right corner constantly. You increase your challenge, you get better. You get better, you increase your challenge. And the more you move toward that direction, the more intense the state of flow gets. So this is not really a how-to book, but our goal should be to find what it is that we love and then keep getting better at it and keep making it more challenging. Or in other words, the main goal is to spend as much of your life as you possibly can in the state of flow, because that is where you find this unbelievable ecstasy.
Okay. Okay, so now that little explanation is talking about flow in the world of business or in the world at large. But of course, the classroom is the world also. And so the idea is when we're in the flow is a moment where motivation is there anyway. Okay, it's almost unnecessary, because you're so engaged in something and you're so involved in something that you're not thinking about what you're doing. You're thinking only about what you're doing, but almost on a really base level. Now, often we talk about flow in the context of sports activities, for example, that idea where if you're a long distance runner and you start running and you're just running, it's all you're doing, you're not thinking about anything else. Or for example, when you do very creative, what we consider traditional creative activities, painting, playing an instrument, those things. But it is actually a moment where that you can find in almost anything. If you're engaged enough in something, and you'll find yourself in the flow. And I think if you're interested in it, then have a look. If you Google the name, which I'm not going to pronounce, if you Google the name and flow, then you'll find lots of information about it. And it's a really interesting concept to think about for our classrooms and trying to find those moments of flow for ourselves and for our students, you know. We're not going to be in the flow all the time, but if we can tune in when we're in the flow, it's great, it's super. And so here's some ideas of things that we could do that might help us to keep flowing. Oh, I've gone too far ahead. Okay, yeah, so my diary now. A diary sort of feels a bit old-fashioned in some ways in terms of classrooms and so on, but I think it's such a such a great tool to be able to use with our students, and to use ourselves. When I was doing a teacher training course many years ago, we had to keep a diary of how we felt on the course, what we were learning, what we'd found difficult, what we wanted to work on. And we did it every day during the course, and it was fascinating. It's fascinating to look back at the things you've learned and to help you focus on what you want to do, what you've been doing well, what you want to do better. And I do often try to do it also in my teaching, to take a few minutes after a lesson and just note down what went well, what I kind of want to think about for the next time. And there are two advantages. One is it takes that stress out of my brain. I don't need to carry on thinking about it. So I can go about the rest of my day without thinking, oh God, that student, and oh God, that activity. And no, it doesn't matter. I've written it down. I can focus on it when I'm ready to go back and focus on it. And also it helps me then when I look back to see the things that have worked well, to see the things that have been going well, and to see the progress that I'm making, that my group's making, that we're all making together, you know. And then of course it's a great activity to do with the students in the same way. If we're talking about older students, secondary, then they can keep a learning diary of what they've been learning, what they've enjoyed, what they want to do. If we're looking at primary, we might want to keep it a bit more basic, but again, you could think about diaries which include some kind of emotions, keep track of how you're feeling. Why did you feel happy today? What can we do that, you know, why did you feel a bit sad today, or a bit bored, or a bit stressed? How can we work on that? How can we make that better for the future, you know? Pictures, all sorts of things. And then of course, in this world of technology, another lovely thing to do is a video diary. So if you are using, for example, I use Google Classroom with a lot of my teams, even although we're doing face-to-face teaching. We have a Google Classroom for homework and for different things. And I can ask them to do a video diary. So they record themselves. They don't need to write it down, but they record themselves telling me how their day's been or how it's been going, and they can send that in. And I think that's diary writing, when we get into it, can be a real flow activity and a great way to keep us going and to keep us reflecting, you know. Now, one thing that I just want to look at here before we come towards the end is my little book. Now, you might have seen this before. I often talk about these little books, but I do love them. And it's a little book that we can make from a piece of A4 paper, okay? Now, this is my book. I'm going to show you very quickly how to make it. If you don't know, if you don't remember, I'm going to show you. If you've got A4 paper, you can do it with me. And if you haven't, you just need to look, remember, keep track of this. I'm sure you'll be able to do it. And if we're all locked down over the Puente weekend, then we've got plenty of time to practice between now and Monday. So, a piece of A4 paper, here we are. First of all, we're going to fold it in half. Fold it in half. It's important, if you've got a table or something, it's important that you get a good, strong crease, okay? You want to get a good crease on it. Half a piece of paper. Now we're going to take it, open it up and fold it again in the other direction. So folding it in half the other way. I can see some people doing this with me. Come on, guys. Great. Okay, so now we're folded this way. I'm going quickly. I know. It's a challenging activity. Hopefully not creating anxiety, but you know. Okay, so we've got this one here. Open it up again. Back to here. Oh, I can see all these papers around. Brilliant. Okay, now this is a tricky bit. Look carefully. So now I'm going to fold this back up on itself. Can you see what I'm doing there? So I'm folding this up to here. I have to lean on the table for a moment. Okay. So I've folded that piece here up, and now I'm going to do the same on the other side. Okay. So in the end, I've got a little thing like this. Okay, if you've got this, then you've done it right so far. Brilliant, I can see some, yay. Okay, now here's the magic trick. This is the magic. Okay, bearing in mind that in the classroom we can't be sharing scissors, we can't be touching very much. So here I am with my paper. Now I'm going to tear this bit here. Tear only halfway down, don't tear the whole thing. Fold it over, and as if by magic, I've got my book. And I can see a few people have got books. I can see a few people have kind of getting books. Yay, well done. Great stuff, guys. Okay, so here we've got a little book that we can do so many different things with. I love these books. I've been doing these for more years than I care to remember, with all different levels and ages. But if we make these books, most people can make these books with a bit of practice. The first time, sometimes it's a bit tricky, but most people can make them. Even, I would say, 7-year-olds maybe can probably make them, up to, of course, people of my age or even older, if that's possible, can make these little books. So then, what do we do with a book? Whatever you want. Whatever you want. You can be super creative, do lots of different things. Here's an idea. I'm going to go back to my screen. One of my favorite things to do with a book, which I've been doing for years and I love it, is a little book of things I'm good at. Okay. Now I like to use this example here, which is from a few years ago now. But this is, I think these guys were around 3rd of primary, and we did a book of things they were good at. And the lovely thing for me here is everybody's good at something. Everyone's really good at something. Not everyone's really good at English. This kid here is not really good at spelling or copying. You can see that they've put I'm really good, but fine, doesn't matter. You know, everyone's good at something, and if we can tune into that, if we can focus on that, then that is motivating. To be able to share that with your classmates, to be able to tell other people what you're good at, it's a great motivating tool for anyone. Obviously, you can adapt this then for higher levels, for older kids, for younger kids. There's lots of different ways you can work around it, but I have to say, the book, make a book, think of things to do with it. You've sorted for lots of motivational activities over the year. Okay, so we just got a couple more things now before we finish. Pen pals. Obviously, at the moment, we're limited in how much we can move. We're limited in travel, but we're not limited in how much we can be in contact with people and how much we can be in contact with people from different situations. Now, the ideal, of course, is to be able to set up maybe a program with a school somewhere else that the kids are learning Spanish. We send our kids, they can send letters or postcards or messages to the kids who are learning Spanish, and they can send it back in Spanish. Obviously, that's the ideal, but there's lots of ways that we can have contact here. Maybe even within your group of schools, you can have students from, I'm in Malaga, and I know that we've got people here, Louisa's in Barcelona, a lot of you are in Madrid, and for my students to be writing a letter or a message or a postcard in English to people in Madrid or to people in Barcelona to find out what it's like there, what's happening, what do people do, what's, you know, what's school like, what's different. Then any connections like that that we can foment, I think it's a great opportunity to do it. Of course, we can do it online, through email or different ways, but if you can create some kind of contact, if it's international, fabulous. If it's not, just contact with other people. I think it's really motivating for students to have that contact. Last thing here, give the students a little bit of control, give them a bit of choice, you know. These are a couple of little small activities. This one, the picture there, you can see there's some things in a group or with a partner or individual. Those activities I do with primary, and every so often they choose what activity they want to do and who they want to work with. They don't choose their partner, but if they want to work on their own or in a group or with a partner, you know. And that element of choice is motivating. They've decided what they want to do. They've chosen to do it, and that's important. Vote on the class activity. Hands up, who wants to do this? And even then, for example, with homework, I often, anybody in secondary, I always give them an element of choice about their homework, either depending on what I think they need or what I think they want. We either say, okay, here's 2 pages of the workbook, one's vocabulary, one's grammar, you decide what you need to work on and choose the one you want to do. I think giving that responsibility, giving that choice, making our students engage with the fact that actually this is helpful for them, this is good for them, it's going to be worth the while, then I think that's very motivating. You know, or it could be here's 3 activities, I want you to do 1, 2, or 3, whichever you decide what you want to do. And in my experience, it makes them much more motivated to do it, and it helps them to take a bit of responsibility for their learning, you know. So that's us reaching the end of our session now. I don't know if anyone's got any questions they want to put in the chat or anything they want to say, but my last words are, do anything. You can't do everything. And so well done everyone for being here this morning, for tuning in, and I hope you found something useful. So thanks so much for coming. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and see if, Louise, have we got any questions or anything? Oh, your microphone, Louise.
No, not